In 3 parts, I will finish Walden. And today is the third and the last part, which will cover the last 6 essays of total 18 essays that are described in this book. Walden, as you know, is the record-breaking work of Henry David Thoreau, the transcendental American writer, a naturalist, yes, a person with a beautiful heart. I have discussed enough about him in the first 2 sections of the Walden. Little bit more. Did you know that Thoreau was called a woods burner throughout his life? Why? Because in 1844, in Concord, his birthplace, he accidentally started a forest fire. And because of this forest fire, it consumed 300 acres of forest. And people started calling Thoreau as woods burner. He did not like it at all. He said, "This is not my mistake. I did not do it intentionally." Second, while living alone at Walden Pond, which is what Walden is all about, he reversed the usual pattern of working 6 days a week and resting on the seventh. So what did he do? He started working for 1 day in a week and resting for the other 6. Resting literally does not mean that you are sleeping all the time. No, no, no. Resting means you are using your brain, but then you're not being materialistic. You are not running after unnecessary things. You are not keeping yourself busy in silly things, right? You have moved above the ordinary. And that is what he means by when he says that I will work for 1 day and rest for the other 6. During this rest, he's contemplating, reading, brooding, observing, taking notes of nature around Walden Pond. And because of this, he relied on money as little as possible, resisted the temptations to buy things that he did not need, like new clothes, shoes, nothing. Okay. And this takes us to the 13th essay of the day. The name of this essay is Housewarming. The month is October, fall, when the leaves fall and you can see sunset colors all around, orangish, yellowish, right? Woods are wearing fall colors, and Thoreau and his brute neighbors, remember brute neighbors, wild animals? So Thoreau and wild animals are storing food for the upcoming winter season. This reminds me of the story of ant and grasshopper, right? How ants are storing food for the winter while grasshopper is busy playing what? The musical instrument, right? The violin. Now, Thoreau's storage is scanty, minimal. It consists only of potatoes, rice, molasses, rye meal, cornmeal, and about 2 quarts of peas with weevil in them. Weevil means insect. So these peas, they are not perfectly all right. They are infected. But then Thoreau is okay with it, right? He's now okay with the wildlife that surrounds him. He's now okay with the solitude that he has brought himself to while living alone here, while trying to find himself at this Walden Pond, right? Okay, beyond this, let's move on. He goes for grape picking in the meadows and collects wild apples and ripe chestnuts as well. Very soon, winter sets in. Walden Pond freezes. There is ice everywhere. And Thoreau begins to study the frozen pond. Once, in order to study practically, he literally lies down full length, he's sleeping on the ice like this. That's my dream, yeah, sleeping on ice, huh? Okay, from ice, Thoreau moves to discuss wood. Imagine ice and wood, absolutely opposites. He collects dead wood, waste wood, and chops up an old forest fence which has seen its best days. Wherever I have used quotation marks and italics, please remember these are lines taken directly from the book, okay? After this, Thoreau reminisces his chimney building days in his snug cabin. Like before moving to Walden Pond, how he was building his single room cabin, how he was, installing the chimney inside. He's remembering those old days with very, very charming memory. He keeps a fire, okay? Now understand, both within my house, literally, and within my breast, figuratively. He wants to keep himself warm in such cold winter days. Then he discusses the practical things related to wood. That is, wood's rising prices, the fun of building a wood pile, the way different wood varieties will burn. And he also calls fire on the hearth a cheerful housekeeper. Hearth means fireplace. So now, do you understand? The name of this essay is Housekeeper, right? as you can see, housewarming. Sorry, the name of this essay is housewarming. So here, who is called the housekeeper? Fire on the fireplace. Although later he uses a cookware in order to save wood. That's how, can you just do a connection here? Initially, he was describing the fun of fishing, the fun of eating fish. Later, he says, I don't want to eat fish. I don't want to eat meat. Now, he's been describing wood, fire, and he stops using wood because he wants to care for the environment. If he will burn wood, nature will get hurt. More trees, they have to be cut in order to get wood. So later, he starts using a cook stove to save wood and feels the loss of fire to look at. Oh, this takes us to 14th essay of the day, former inhabitants and winter visitors. Quote, I weathered some merry snowstorms. At this season, I seldom had a visitor. Of course, it is harsh winter. There is snow and ice everywhere. People hardly come, hardly go. Animals have also hidden themselves in their shelters. And let me tell you, Thoreau feels absolutely lonely. Yes, you will understand from this chapter. He feels alone here. He can only see the wood chopper, and that also very occasionally from his cabin. First, let's talk about former inhabitants who are now dead, who are now no more. To face loneliness, quote, he's obliged to conjure up the former occupants of these woods who are now long dead. Who are these people who are now long dead? The former inhabitants at Walden. First, an African-American woman whose house was burned down. Second, former slaves who lived troubled lives. Third, an alcoholic man whose house caught fire and his son mourned over their burnt house more than the death of his father. Can you imagine? Fourth, an alcoholic ditch digger named Hugh Coyle, who was a gentleman, but his house was demolished. And for Hugh Coyle, Thoreau says, all I know of him is tragic. And fifth, an early settler who almost lost his entire family when his cottage was covered by snow. Quote, the great snow, how cheerful it is to hear of. What an ironic statement. Did you understand the meaning? He's saying how cheerful it is to hear of the great snow. But this snow can take away lives. This snow can kill people. So here he's telling the tragedies related to fire and snow. Sixth, he also describes the people who left their houses and moved to another house from Walden. But before leaving their houses, they made sure to cover their wells with stones. Of course, in the olden days, you had to take out water from the wells, and houses had wells. So these people, when leaving Walden, made sure to cover the wells with stones because they did not want animals to fall into these wells. This is humanity. Quote, listen to the line again. What a sorrowful act that must be, the covering up of wells, coincident with the opening of wells of tears. Why wells of tears? Because they are leaving their place of inhabitation and going and settling somewhere else, which is, of course, very sorrowful. Thoreau describes these sad memories, maybe to remind himself that how lucky he is to have a place to lay his head on in these harsh winters, in this harsh winter season. Now, the next session of this essay is winter visitors. In harsh winter, along with thinking about the people who are no more, Thoreau had occasional living visitors also from Concord. First, woodchopper, you know him. Second, a poet. Third, a philosopher. Fourth, an old immortal. And fifth, he waits for a visitor who never comes. And this reminds me of Waiting for Godot. Nobody comes, nobody goes. Remember? Sometimes Thoreau becomes truly morose. I told you winter has brought him sadness. He compares himself to a snug meadow mouse and also to cattle and poultry who are buried in snowdrift with no food. Snowdrift means layers and layers of snow, thick snow. So he's, buried in this snowdrift. He has no food. He compares himself to a mouse, to cattle and poultry. Oh, and this takes us to 15th. Again, winter continuing. Here he talks about winter animals, how he will try to fight his loneliness by trying to listen to the sounds of the animals. Let's listen to this essay, 15th number, Winter Animals. Winter is still looming over, and Thoreau finds the distant sound of a hooting owl forlorn but melodious. He at least has some sound to listen to. So when the owl hoots, he feels that it is melodious. He can hear somebody. At night, the distant sounds are Thoreau's only company. Which are these distant sounds? First, the sound of the frozen pond whooping, the frozen ground cracking, geese flying, and demon-like barks of roving foxes. Roving means moving here and there, okay? So he hears the sounds of these demon-like barks of foxes, which also he finds melodious, because at least he can hear something. He has some company during this winter season. Thoreau tries to beat his loneliness. How? By keeping corns outside his cabin, which attracts jays. Jays are crow-like birds. Red squirrels who frisk in an uncertain trigonometric manner. And poor wee hare. Wee means little. So poor little hare, trembling with fear yet unwilling to move. You understood why the hare is trembling with fear? He is fearful of a human being, but he knows that I will get corns here. So he's unwilling to move. He's, nibbling on the corns, which Thoreau has kept outside his cabin, in order to feel and see, these animals who are really, really feeling it hard during winter season, along with Thoreau. Now, Walden book, that is, which we are discussing right now, describes a classic fox hunt. Imagine a fox being hunted by packs of wild dogs. And Thoreau's sympathies are actually with the fox because, of course, he's the prey, right? So people like the weak. Yeah, I mean, fox otherwise is not weak, but in front of a pack of dogs, the fox gets weaker, right? Then Thoreau mentions squirrels and mice who are fighting over nuts and pine barks. Have you seen the Ice Age where there's always a squirrel running after the nut? Oh, it's so cute. Ice Age starts with that squirrel, ends with that squirrel. It's an awesome animated movie. If you have kids, do watch Ice Age with your children. After this, hares come to Thoreau's door to eat the potato parings that he has thrown. And Thoreau mentions the last deer that was killed in this vicinity. There is hunting going on. Of course, weaker animals are hunted by the stronger ones. It is the law of nature. We cannot stop it. Then Thoreau calls rabbits and partridges as essential forest creatures. He calls rabbits and partridges as natural. He calls rabbits and partridges as true natives of the soil. Why? Because they are exactly the same color of the forest floor. And second, they have been familiar since ancient times. So in this essay, Winter Animals, Thoreau shows his love as well as abundant knowledge about wild animals in Walden. Yes? This takes us to essay number 16, The Pond Winter. During winter mornings, Thoreau has an important job to do. What is that important job during winter mornings? At the Walden Pond, he clears 1 foot of snow and then chops through 1 foot of ice before he can get a drink. Do you understand the intensity of the snow that has been built over the Walden Pond in winter season? And when he clears and chops the snow and ice respectively, he peers through the hole into the quiet parlor of the fishes. He can see the fishes finally in this frozen Walden Pond in the winter season. Soon afterward, he finds something exciting happening at Walden Pond. What is this exciting thing? Ice fishermen arrive with their gear. Who are ice fishermen? They cut ice. Do you know even this profession existed during that time? So when a lake or a pond was completely filled with ice, these ice fishermen will come with their gears, with their instruments. They will break the ice, cut it into pieces, and these pieces will be transported to other parts of the world. Ice being transported to other parts of the world. Imagine. And so now let's continue. It is Thoreau's second winter at Walden. 100 men hired by a rich local farmer arrive to cut ice. These ice fishers or ice fishermen are wild men, undisturbed by town life. And Thoreau loves his frequent conversations with them. Legend has it that the pond is bottomless, while Thoreau thoroughly studied the Walden Pond, and he told us that Walden Pond is actually 107 feet deep. The ice fishers remove an astonishing ice of about 10,000 tons. Quote, they divide the ice into cakes by methods too well known to require description, of which they will lose 75% to melting. They work so hard, out of which 75% labor is lost in melting. Only 25% of this ice from New England's ponds and lakes will be stored in ice houses before being shipped by ship or railroad to Boston, other parts of the world like India. So India is also mentioned in this book. Quote, the pure Walden water is mingled with the sacred water of the Ganges. And here we are done with essay number 16. This takes us to the 17th essay named Spring. Winter is gone after so many chapters and spring is here. The essay begins beautifully. Quote, the first sparrow of spring, the year beginning with younger hope than ever. Thoreau describes the breakup and disappearance of ice. It's a very complex process, just like any geological phenomenon. Like, the earth, it has plates. The geological phenomenon, even ice breaking is, not less complicated than that. Thoreau is thrilled by the leaf-like patterns formed by sand and clay on a nearby hillside as the snow recedes. Till now, everything was covered with snow. Now the snow is receding. So the sand and clay is giving the shape. It is in the shape of a leaf. That is what Thoreau observes. Okay. He says, you find thus in the very sands an anticipation of the vegetable leaf. Spring is here. New leaves will grow, right? The flowing sand with its branching streams, quote, obeys halfway the laws of currents, that is, it falls downward, and halfway that of vegetation, that is, it is in the shape of a leaf. You here see perchance, that is, perhaps, how blood vessels are formed. Tiny, tiny sands and clay, just like vessels, it will be seen. So he's comparing sand and clay with blood vessels. New plants grow, trees begin to bud. Spring is being described. Remember, new plants grow, trees begin to bud, animals and birds appear once again everywhere, and the natural light is brighter and purer as compared to any other season. Thoreau says that just as the spring rain makes grass greener, quote, so our prospects brighten on the influx of better thoughts. In a pleasant spring morning, all men's sins are forgiven. Can you imagine the change in his attitude? During winter season, he was so melancholy, he was so morose, and now he talks about brightening up. He talks about pleasant spring mornings. He talks about sins getting forgiven. Isn't it great? When he finds a dead horse near his house, a horse is dead, he in fact describes it as a symbolic rebirth. He says that its decomposition reminds him of nature's strong appetite, how nature also wants something to eat. It will decompose. It will also help back in nature. It will help the trees and the roots grow deeper. Towards the end of this essay, Thoreau comments, and so the seasons went rolling on into summer as one rambles into higher and higher grass. And the chapter ends abruptly. What is the end of this chapter? Penultimate chapter. I finally left Walden September 6th, 1847. This is the date he will leave Walden and move back to Concord after living at Walden alone for 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. When will he leave? 6 September 1847. And this takes us to the last chapter of today, the last essay from Walden called Conclusion. Here, I've made it very simple. I have given you important quotes, and I will make you understand. They are self-understandable, but I'll tell you, he basically is highlighting the principle of transcendentalism. Remember, he came to Walden as an experiment. He wanted to experiment about himself, know about the greater truth, connect with himself, the divinity within him. He wanted to listen to the, other drummer, that is the nature. He wanted to live minimally. Was he successful in this experiment? According to him, yes. Thoreau highlights the principles of transcendentalism, which are enlightenment, individualism, non-conformity, and self-determination. Listen to the quote. To the sick, the doctors wisely recommend a change of air and scenery. He never told us he was sick. Maybe he was sick in mind. He wanted a change in his attitude, right? Travel is recommended, but, quote, home cosmography is even more educational. What is home cosmography? Study of earth, heaven, universe, etc. He says, I have more of God, travelers, more of road. Understood? He has more of God, more of spiritual knowledge. Quote, if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. Quote, Direct your eyes right inward, and you will find 1,000 regions in your mind yet undiscovered. Quote again, why should we be in such desperate haste to succeed and in such desperate enterprises? Money is not required to buy one necessary of the soul. He says materialistic gain is not as important as spiritual gain, right? Quote, if a man does not keep pace with his companions means his intuition, the voice of his inner self. If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away. Quote again, I am reminded of the greater benefactor and intelligence that stands over me, the human insect. He calls himself the human insect. And the reason he gives for leaving Walden Pond for Concord after 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days is, quote, perhaps it seemed to me that I had several more lives to live. His life at Walden was over, but the message he wanted to give himself came out loud and clear. Life is beautiful. It is important when you self-meditate, contemplate, keep your demands minimum in life, and you will get maximum happiness. This holds true even now. What 1847 now is 2023. Let me tell you, this lies equally important today. The day we stop comparing, the day we talk to us about the beauty of life, the day we start observing nature around, oh, our life will be so beautiful. Yes, this is Hina from Team Vallath, and we are done with Walden. Take care of yourself. Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.